You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 126, The Dead Daisies, live in Joliet, Illinois, and coming to you square in the middle of the suburbs of Chicago. I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you 16 miles away from Joliet, Illinois, I'm your co-host, John Neapolitan Matola.
Is that why you paused before the shows? You needed to look up the distance to Joliet?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're like, oh, wait, give me a second. Give me a second.
I don't know where I
was
am.
Oh, he has an important text from his father or something.
No, it was kind of intertwined in there.
Because your father's been texting you all day asking you about how to fix up his new iPhone. So I thought it was just more of that.
Yeah, my dad got a new iPhone and now he just won't stop haranguing me about everything because all of his settings are different. So it's just like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I'm like, my mom is right there. She's relentless. She'll try until the end of time to figure something out. Please utilize her.
Oh man.
But yeah, I'm Neapolitan because we went to had a beautiful day yesterday and went to Nate's kids soccer game, which was
soccer games, a double header. And it was very, very sunny out, and I that was my opening of water.
I forgot sunscreen and wore a tank top, and now I have the colors of the rainbow all over my neck and my shoulder, and
you've got graduated. You've got red from the burn and tan from the previous, and a little lighter in the middle. Classic Neapolitan format.
Yep. So I look fantastic.
But going to our children's soccer game was not the only thing we did yesterday. What else did we do?
We went to see the Dead Daisies.
That's right, baby. It actually happened. Actually got to go. Didn't get canceled for COVID.
No.
There was no lockdown that shut down unnecessary venues. They didn't cancel their tour. Presumably no one in the tour got COVID. Although there was one point at the show where I thought maybe the show was over because somebody got COVID, but we'll get into that in a minute. But it actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was it was great. You know, we just got there, walked in without incident. Everything just seemed normal, you know, just a cool rock show. So it happened, people.
Yep. Very, very exciting. We'll get into that in a minute. But first off, what we have to do, and this might be a shorter episode because we're just going to kind of rehash this. The YouTube version of this may just be us talking, and on the audio version, we might splice in some of the audio from the show. But yeah, it might be a little shorter, but we're also recording this hours away from when the show actually has to go live in a few hours. So we can't lollygag too long. We got to get the show out so it's up so it's out on Monday morning. But first off, we got to thank our patrons. There's a number of ways that you can support the show. You can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can buy merch at our Etsy store. You can become a patron on Patreon or PayPal for as little as $1 a month. Help support the show. And speaking of patrons, coming in at the 10-pound tier, at the patron upgrade tier, I should say. Hey-o!
Hi-o!
We have Dr. Jill Brees upgrading from, actually, I don't even remember where she was, but she's now at the 10-pound tier. She's donating 10 pounds. I don't know what the conversion rate today is on that, but so she's coming in with hard, cold English cash. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Jill Brees, in our new top spot, the 10-pound tier. Coming in at the turn it up to $11 tier is Clay Wambacher, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Alan Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and Mikkel Steen. At the $10 Someone Came tier, we have Steve Seaborg of NameOnAnything.com and AllTheWorldSAstage.net, Ryan M., who we met yesterday at the show. We'll get into that in a minute. Jeff Bryce, Gerald Kelly, and Victor Campos. Thank you so much to all of you for your unbelievable work supporting the Deep Purple Podcast. And hey, before we get into this, we do want to also recognize the Deep Dive Podcast Network, who has 2 new editions, and we're kind of late to getting these out there. But the first new addition to the show is Diary of the Madmen, the ultimate Aussie podcast,
Oh yeah.
which is really cool. So they're on the scene, bringing in the Aussie shows. They got quite a few episodes up already, maybe like 6 or 7, but really cool. Just two old friends talking about Aussie, really, really awesome. And then number 2 joining they're new to the network, but not new to the show because we've talked about them before, are Ben and Sam at Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast. I've sung their praises on the show before, but just a couple of brothers who crack me up, and they just have a lot of fun, great delivery. They kind of like us, don't take the material too seriously, have a lot of laughs, and are just really funny guys. They'll occasionally just burst into song and sing along and try to do harmonies together. And they just they're also musicians, and they played in a Red Hot Chili Peppers cover band that was called Lukewarm Chili Peppers, which I think is great.
I love that.
And so they've got intimate familiarity with the music and with how to actually play it. And they just have a ton of fun with it. So it's really a lot of fun. So recommend those 2 shows new to the network. Welcome, guys. And we got to do a better job of talking up the Deep Dive Podcast Network, because we don't bring it up as much as we should these days on our episodes. All right. So it happened. You came out to Illinois. We met up. And even when you were here, as we've been talking about, we were scared that the show was going to be canceled. But lo and behold, we drove out to rural Joliet, Illinois, went downtown and saw them at the Forge. So I made some notes on my phone during the night, because I was like, oh, some things that we'll need to mention.
Yeah.
So we did record, first off, I should say, we recorded a little, we recorded a bit in the car. So I'm not sure how that came out, that recording. We recorded on the way to the show, and then recorded on the way home, like our kind of what we thought it was going to be, and then a little review afterwards. But then we're going to review it now. So somehow we'll splice that together. So if the audio came out okay and it's compelling, I'll drop it right here. So if you heard it, hopefully that was of some value. If you didn't hear anything, we deemed it to be unnecessary. And then we'll do the same at the end.
Well, yeah, we thought that, some kind of on the way observations would be fun, like the kind of the build up to the concert, and then the immediate, like, while it was fresh in our minds, kind of like talking on the way home, about the night. It's always it's always a lot of fun. But now we've had time to hash these stories out a couple of times, like over the course of the day, and think about it for a little bit. So we'll see how it comes out today.
Yeah, and we'll see if some of these things are maybe things that we've already forgotten or would have, but there were some things I was like, oh, I just want to make sure we remember to talk about that. So first thing, we got there, we parked directly across the street from the venue, on the street,
which we spent a few minutes trying to, because it seemed too good to be true, because it was a spot like basically right in front of the venue. So like, I'm like hunting around for like the parking meter and seeing if anybody else had tickets, like little tickets, things in there for parking, stubs in their dashboards, and like on the website, seeing when the parking hours were to and from. And then we found out that it was not too good to be true.
Yeah, it didn't seem, I was convinced that when we got out there'd be a big ticket on my windshield, but every other car didn't have a slip. And yeah, so it was, and the show, when we got in there, I mean, it wasn't packed. It was not a sold out show.
No, I feel like the venue, what do you think that venue holds? Like a few 500 people?
Yeah, maybe.
And I mean, there's a downstairs and upstairs.
And I'd say maybe 150 to 200 were there.
Yeah, I would say this was probably like half capacity, because we were on the upstairs, which kind of like wrapped around, and there was an upstairs bar, but that was like not full at all.
No.
And the downstairs, like, GA was probably half full. But, honestly, that's what I was expecting, because when I saw Hughes a few years ago doing the Deep Purple Classics tour at the Strand, it's a venue that was probably roughly around the same size. And like, I would say was probably as full. And seeing as that, like, we're at this point, we're such a niche audience for this kind of music, I wasn't surprised that it wasn't like jam packed.
And I think just because it was so far out there, like if they had played at a club that was a little closer to the city,
yeah,
I think,
or even in the city,
or in the city, I think maybe they would get a lot. But I think a lot of people, if they're in the city, like coming out. But there was one person that's relatively in the city that did come out, and that's Ryan M, our patron that we got to
Yep,
meet before
who
the show.
greeted us right when we walked in.
Yeah, I walked in and I was like, I kind of thought like I've seen his Twitter, but you see people's Twitter pictures and you don't know if it's actually them or not. So I was like, that looks kind of familiar, and walked over and he's like, hey, are you Nate and John from the Deep Purple podcast? Came over, super nice guy, obviously, and just was we had a great chat with him. Offered to buy him a beer, didn't realize he was only 20, which in the United States is not of legal drinking age, but he accepted. But I decided it might be a better idea to not get all three of us kicked out.
We all didn't want to get kicked out.
We come this far and then like I'll get kicked out for buying him beer.
Yeah, it's like, oh, is it going to be canceled? It's not going to be canceled. Then we finally get there. And it's like, get out of here.
Get
You
out.
bought a minor a beer. Oh, damn it. So yeah, we forewent that. But we still appreciated you coming out, Ryan, and introducing yourself, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it was awesome getting to meet you, and talked about, he had said he had a copy of Come Taste the Band with him that he wanted Glenn to sign. And then he also I forgot which one of us asked him how he found the show.
I asked him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then he said he was searching for Come Taste the Band on Spotify, did he say? Or
no, I think he said he Googled it. I can't remember if he said,
or maybe it's iTunes, or well, you can tell us, Ryan, if we're botching your story, but
he said he was searching for it, and whatever the search was in, we came up before actual Deep Purple.
which is a real crime. So then he's like, oh cool, a podcast about Come Taste the Band, let me check that out. So it was around the time that was a fresh episode, which was like episode 18 or something. What did he say it was? 13, or it was
early,
an early episode. And I remember like in the early days being like, oh, I can't wait till we get to Come Taste the Band. And now it's just, I mean,
it was eons ago.
Yeah, it seemed like forever when you first start the show, and now it's like, oh my god, we got to do another show this week. But yeah, it would have been early on. So yeah, and he's been in contact with us and been a patron forever. So yeah, it was great to meet you, Ryan, and thanks for continuing to support the show. Hopefully we can meet up with you again sometime and go to another show when somebody of note comes around. So yeah, then after we met Ryan, we went upstairs, and the section I only remembered from looking at the floor plan like which section we were on. I think we're around here, and I didn't really get, I guess they had some letters on the wall and I didn't really see them, and they had even written them on our bracelets. I didn't even make the connection.
It was actually a good system, but we
had no
gaffed it up.
Yeah, we had no idea how it actually worked.
Yeah.
So there was no spots, like there was basically like a railing that you could sit on, almost like sitting at a bar,
like a balcony.
Yeah, but there was like a little area where you could put your drink and stuff, and you're looking down on the show. And I was like, well, there's no spaces over here. So we went over to the other side, and there were a few spaces. So we'll just stand over here. So we stood there. And then a few minutes later, some other people came and like stood kind of impatiently behind us. And then like was kind of pacing around. And I was like, oh man, this isn't where we're supposed to be. They're going to kick us out or whatever. And
then one of the staff came over, and the staff was really nice.
Yeah, super nice.
And said, hey, these people are here. And so then we were just like, well, seeing as that you're kicking us out of here, can you help us find our spot and kick out whoever's there? Because obviously the whole other side was packed with people. So it's like somebody had to be in our spot.
Well, he took his flashlight and shined him on our bracelets and saw the letter. He's like, oh, come with me. And I was like, oh, I hadn't seen the letter previously. So, okay. Yeah. So he brings us around to the other side, and there's people sitting in our seats. This like some people, like they're kind of,
they looked like our parents' age.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt bad because they're like kicking these people out.
And I'm like, great. They kick us out, and there were people that are around our age kicking them out. Now we're kicking out these geriatric people. These two people, one of them had a cane.
One of them had a cane.
Oh my God,
I felt really bad. And we're just like standing. I'm trying not to look like I'm like impatiently like tapping my foot, like, let's go. But at the same time, it's like, that's the tickets that we bought. So
yeah,
let us. We did need to sit there, which was good because I was really worried before that. The kind of downside about there was a lot of space behind where we were, with like some really nice like round couches and tables and stuff, but if you sat there you could not see at all the show.
No, that would be like that's a cool setup for if there was just a regular night where they didn't have any music, and it was just maybe they were there's like a DJ or something.
Yeah, or if there was a band that you were like didn't really have any interest in seeing, you just sit there and it would have been fine. But like I was like actually a moment of like almost panic, like, oh my God, we're gonna have to sit at this table, and like I'm gonna have to maybe stand on my tiptoes and look between two shoulders. But then when we sat there, we sat there, and We could see directly, except for there was a big pole coming down.
It was a support beam, so it was like it was blocking the right side of the stage, but it was over just enough that um well, really it didn't really block anything for us because of, eventually when the Dead Daisies came out, it was like it only really blocked off our view
Like
of
Dave Lowry was there but he moved around a little bit, but it
yeah,
mostly blocked him, and it completely blocked the singer guitar player for the Black Moods who opened for them.
right.
So that was, but we could have also just stood up and stepped over a few feet and watched.
Yeah, I
but
mean, I feel like I kind of like leaned over to the left a little
Yeah.
bit, and I was like, yeah, that's good enough. But I mean, if
you
like,
were like, you were like a foot over from me, so you could kind of see, but from where I was, there was nothing I could do to see.
but I'm thinking like, great. I said, like with our luck, I said Hughes is going to be positioned right on the side of the stage where we can't see him. And at that point, I was like, if that happens, I don't care what these seats are. I'm going downstairs or I'm going somewhere else because I'm not seeing him.
Yeah.
But we were lucky that he was like dead center.
Well, I actually called up I called up their Twitter feed, and I looked at the picture of them on stage from like the night before, a couple nights before, and I was like, no, obviously Hughesy's going to be dead center.
Sure.
And I was Doug Aldrich is on the side. I was like, okay, we'll get to see most of it, and it worked out really well.
Right.
So then after that, the what else did I get? What else do I have here in my notes? So the Black Moods were the opening rack. I thought they were awesome.
They were good. They were power trio. Like while they were playing, I saved them on my Spotify so I could hear them later. I didn't know any of the songs, but it's like I was saying last night, when a live band is playing that you don't know any of their songs, like if you just like latch on to like their groove or like their energy when they're playing, or you like, pick up a riff or a groove that they're doing, like, yeah, this is some good stuff, and they were like in that same vein of like just hard rock, like just really like appropriate for the situation. They played for a while too.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe a little under an hour. Maybe.
Like it seemed like they were. There was one point where we thought they were going to end because the bass player was like over near the side. You could see Doug Aldrich coming over, and he looked like he said something to him, and he was probably like, right. Hey, Glenn wants to get on stage, so hurry it up. It was like, but it was like maybe they did like 4 or 5 other songs after that, but that's like, that's what it looked like. He was just like, hey, get the hell off the stage.
But they were super solid. Like the guitar at one point, like the guitar player broke a string, and they just like somebody ran over a new guitar, and then he just kind of riffed it for a little while. He did some like almost like a medley of classic rock riffs.
Yeah, he sounded like he did kind of like a really kind of short, like not a full guitar solo, but it was like, he kind of did like a mini guitar solo in between songs, and it sounded like he was doing a cross between like a Ace Frehley, like blues based, type thing, and a couple of like familiar, kind of like an homage to maybe players that he, that influenced him. And it was, they're just a cool band,
Yeah, and super full sounding for a trio, which is hard to do. I mean, they sounded every bit as full as the Dead Daisies with only one guitar, and yeah, it's a good testament to them. The drummer was great, good bass player, guitarist was really good singer. I mean, they were just super solid. So you should check them out.
Yep, I'd recommend them. Don't sleep on them if you're going to see the Dead Daisies and you don't want to, you want to, get there late or whatever. If you do get there in time, check out the opening act.
Yeah, I'll have to also get them on Spotify and check out some of their stuff after when I get a chance.
Or if they're not on tour with them and they just open for them locally, check them out when they play locally.
Oh, well, they said they're from Phoenix, so they're probably they're probably going around.
Okay, I wasn't sure,
or at least on this leg of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that we got Don Jameson, the stand-up, which you were a little more familiar with than me from that metal show, right?
Right, yeah, because I know that metal show had 14 seasons, but I mean, I came in like maybe halfway through before it ended, so I hadn't seen like the early ones, but I mean, I was super familiar with like, him, Eddie Trunk, and Jim Florentine, who I didn't know at the time that Jim Florentine and Don Jameson are both stand-up comedians, but they're like metal stand-up comedians, like kind of like in the vein of like a Jim Brewer, or who's the other one I talked about last night? Brian Posehn.
Oh yeah.
Who they're, like a lot of their humor is like based toward metal fans or rock fans.
I mean, his almost entire routine was, I think his entire routine was all about heavy metal.
Yeah.
this kind of family of music. And
Yeah, because I mean, it's like it's kind of already an odd thing to have like a stand-up comedian opening for a, but like you have the opening band and then you have the band like the act before the opening band who's
Yeah.
supposed to be like quote unquote bigger than that. And I mean, he has more of a name.
Mhm.
But you know, I felt like yeah, so his comedy was like basically tailored to the audience. He talked about everything from like, you know, that metal show to Judas Priest to like, you know, just everybody that, you know, everybody would know. But it's you know, definitely not like I liked him better like on that metal show as just maybe a talk show host or like he'd probably be good at a podcast. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I thought some of his jokes were funny, but not like super refined comedian.
Yeah, and he made some jokes too about about how, you know, Dave Lowry is a millionaire, and you know they fly first class everywhere and they do everything, and they said, but yet they hired me as a comedian. They
So
they could have hired anybody, any like A-list comedian.
so he
Uh,
knows, you know, he was like super aware of it. But
they did a good job. He was pumping up the crowd about heavy metal music and about the style of
yeah.
music, and then he was and he mentioned something about Lita Ford, and there was this guy in the audience
Oh
that
my
just he got you kept calling him like the heavy metal Muppet or something,
Yeah, I
or heavy
kept
metal
calling it the
Kermit.
heavy metal Kermit because he would just like he went, "Yeah," and he was like sustained it for like a long, and he would like, did you see him? He was standing there and he had his fist in the air like this. He go, yeah, and he said something about like, you know, oh man, Lita Ford, like she was hot in the '80s, and it was like, yeah, and we're like, all right, dude, act like you've been there before, like calm down, like she's in her 60s now, like don't get all riled up.
Yeah, he was loving it. He was a big fan of Lita Ford.
But he was a big fan of everything. You could hear this
Oh
dude
yeah,
like just like busting out like after everything. Glenn Hughes is like, all right, our next song is gonna be the Burn. It's like our
you
my
could hear him. Yeah, despite the fact that it was quite loud.
yeah, he was. But there's always one, you know, there's always one at every show that's gonna ruin it for everybody, you know, whether they're like,
He
you know,
didn't ruin it.
screaming inappropriately, or you're like standing there and then like they're way too tall and like stand in front of you and you're like, ugh.
Well, one thing about the show that was really interesting is that because of where we were up at top, it was, you know, went in and, you know, it was like, oh, is it going to be really crowded? And there's a mask mandate for the state right now, and basically no one there was wearing a mask.
I didn't see any,
No,
one or two
I saw a
people.
few people, but it wasn't much. So I'm the goofball with my mask on because I've got kids at home, and but there was nobody. We weren't near anybody. It
Right.
was, you know, completely. There was one guy sitting to the side of me, which we'll get to in a second, and yeah. Other than that, there was just nobody.
It wasn't packed to the like
There
the
was
hilt, you know.
no one. It wasn't like seats, like stadium
They were
style
like
seating.
bar
So there was
stools
literally no one behind us for. The only thing behind us was the stairs to go downstairs,
and a bar.
and a bar which was like 20 feet back,
Right.
and then that was it. And then in front of us was the stage, so it was like, so I was at least a little.
But I feel like even general admission on the floor wasn't like, you know, and when you get to a really packed club, or in the past when you've been to like I've been to a lot of shows where it's like you are like shoulder to shoulder with people in places like that, and it's like even general admission seemed to be really comfortable and spaced out, except, you know, you had like, you know, the line of people that like had to be like right up to the edge of the stage, and then, you know, everybody else was just kind of like scattered about. So I mean, overall I think the place was you know, appropriately
Yeah.
packed, you know.
And there was something you could looking down to, you could see some of the people were intentionally like kind of steps separated off to the side because they were trying not to get too close. So there was some of that. One thing I did forget to mention, so we went in and I had this little recorder on me to record some like audio segments from the show, so I could maybe pop them in here. But I was like, I don't know, they're going to be about recording. And I checked their website, and they're like, you can't have photography or anything. And I was like, well, that's funny because everyone's got a phone, but whatever. And
right, no photography or video, it said.
or video. I was like, everyone's on their phone taking pictures and videos.
Right.
But I, of course, like I said, that means, you know, if somebody comes in unauthorized with a camera with a giant telephoto lens and on a tripod, they're gonna be like, hey buddy, you need to. But there were a few people there with nice cameras, but they're probably hired by the band.
Yeah.
So we get there and they wand us down, and she says, oh, could you empty your pockets? I'm like, oh no. So I take out my wallet, and then I take out my recorder, my little recording device, and I put that on the table. She goes like, ah, what's that? I was like, oh, it's a recorder. And she's like, oh, cool. And I was like, okay. I thought for sure she's gonna be like, you can't bring that in. She's like, oh, cool. And then I just put it back in my pocket and we went in. I was like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah. So super loose there and everything. I had looked up, like, I'm a review fiend, as most of you know, after my main pizzeria reviews episode.
Which as of recording this, it came out only a few days ago.
Yes, and has been wildly successful.
Yeah,
thus
we
far.
got so much positive feedback on that.
But I was like, all right, I want to see what kind of place this is, like check out some pictures or whatever. And all of the recent reviews from, like, say, the past like few weeks to a month were overwhelmingly positive. Nice staff, like good food, like, drinks a little expensive, but bartender's nice.
I mean, maybe for Joliet they were expensive.
Well, I mean, two beers were $17.
Oh, okay, that's expensive.
So
I was, coming from New York, I'm like always, me and Jen still, when we used to be able to go out for dinner, would go out for dinner and we get the bill and we're like, still used to New York prices. You get the bill and you're like, did they include everything? What's going on? It's just, you're so used to you going to a hotel in New York and paying $25 for a martini or something,
yeah.
So,
but I mean, overwhelming, the reviews were like, nice staff, cool venue, like great show, like great small venue to see a show in, blah blah blah. So that was encouraging, and I have to say it was definitely all true. Like, I mean, like the door people were like nice. Like usually they could be like, dismissive, like, oh, raise your hands, take a ticket,
Yeah, they were super like friendly about the whole process.
Really nice. Bartenders were nice. Even the guy, like, kicking us out of the seats was like, hey, sorry,
Oh yeah, he was
like,
he couldn't have been more polite about it.
Exactly.
He was absolutely right. We were in somebody else's seat, and I was glad that he also helped us find where we were supposed to be.
Yeah, so everybody was very
out.
cool, so yeah, good experience there.
Yeah. So yeah, great venue. What else? So then Dead Daisies come on, and they come out with a bang. They opened up with Unspoken off of the latest album, which I think it was either that or maybe Holy Ground. That was the first single. I can't remember. Just come out kicking and punching and doing a great job. A few moments before the song even ends, Glenn Hughes just takes off his bass, holds it up. Some guy grabs the bass and runs off with it. And he's like, hey, we got a little bit of problem. We'll be back in 5 minutes. And Glenn Hughes runs off stage. And then I think
everybody left except Doug Aldridge.
Yeah, everyone left the stage. And I'm like, and in my mind, you know what I'm thinking?
What?
They got a positive COVID test result and they're going to get in the show after one song.
Oh my God. You know what? I didn't even think of that. I immediately thought this, like, what actually happened was there was probably technical difficulties.
I thought we have a problem. I was like, is Glenn okay? And I was like, hopefully it's just like a technical thing. But of course, then after my mind was like, what if it's some bad news about that? So then Doug Aldrich gets on, he starts riffing on Voodoo Child for a little bit, starts messing around, and then it was September 11th, the 20-year anniversary. And then he says, oh, let's have a moment of silence. So that kind of like all that energy that built up kind of brought it down. And so we all had like kind of a moment of silence, and which was really nice. And, remembering the what had happened 20 years ago yesterday. And there's like some background noise. And then he says, we'll do it for like a 30-second moment of silence. I think he heard that people were still kind of chit-chatting in the background, which is a little whatever. They probably just didn't hear him. And then it didn't last long. Glenn said we'll be back in like 5 minutes, but it was probably like 2 minutes. Yeah. And they came back and he's like, all right, let's do this. And then boom, they just kicked right back in. And so that was like a little bit of a jarring opening, but they handled it like super professionally. And then they did 2 songs from the Burn It Down album. So I was interested. I never like look up set lists before shows. So they were playing songs from previous albums, which I didn't know if Glenn was going to do, but they sounded really cohesive with him on. And I'm not, like we talked about, we're not very familiar with the band. I really only started paying attention to the band when Glenn joined, because Glenn joined.
I mean, I was familiar a little bit with it. Like, I mean, I heard the stories of the story of how they were formed, and how they kind of had the revolving door of musicians, and that their most popular to date lineup was with John Corabi on vocals. And I had heard some of the Corabi stuff, which I thought was really good, because I'm not a huge fan, but I mean, I like him. I think he's definitely I liked him in the Dead Daisies. I liked him in the he's a great performer too. I've liked their couple of albums he did in the 90s with Bruce Kulick, Union, where he was the singer. The Motley Crue self-titled album, which I never really got into, but obviously I've known who he was for a long time. So, at that point, like that's the only Dead Daisy stuff I knew. And they're like, okay, now Glenn Hughes is the singer. And I'm like, that you couldn't get any more different than John
Yeah,
Corabi's
very
vocal
different, yeah.
style. So I'm like, okay, like, I don't know where they're going with this. But yeah, I mean, whatever he was doing, it sounded like he was, adapting the material pretty well. It didn't sound like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like how we talked about with Ronnie singing like the Sabbath stuff didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those situations. Like they could have been his songs
Right. Yeah. They
or
worked
his eras.
really, really well. Then they went into another song from Holy Ground, Chosen and Justified. They did Mexico from Revolucion. They did Bustle and Flow from Holy Ground after that. So I've listened to Holy Ground a few times, and I've heard the singles a few more times than that. So I was a little familiar with it. So when those songs came on, I could recognize them a little bit more easily, but it was really loud. Like, so, and I was kicking myself that I didn't bring earplugs or anything, because
I forgot.
yeah,
I legit forgot. I didn't, like, if I had them, it was like, I probably don't need them. Like I probably would have
Right.
put them in, and I'm just like, you know what? One show isn't going to kill me,
because
but
that was a sound system for a club that was twice that size.
yeah,
So I was like,
it wasn't bad. Like it wasn't unlistenable. It was
no,
just, it got really loud.
but it was funny because I was like, man, sometimes like the frequencies and everything, I was like, I can't, like Glenn's vocal sounded a little low in the mix to me, and I couldn't tell. And then I'd taken a couple of little videos that I posted to YouTube this morning of the Deep Purple songs that they played. And when I listened to those on my phone, I was like, oh wow, the mix on this is much easier to hear everything. It sounded really good, actually. So it was yeah, I'm just an old man, or whatever it is, but yeah, even when I woke up this morning, it sounded like I had earplugs. It felt like I had earplugs in this morning because things sounded a little muffled. It's kind of coming back to normal now, but I gotta be probably a little more careful about my ears. Not that I go to that many shows at all anymore, but next time I go to a show, I'll definitely be bringing earplugs just to be safe. Then they did Lock and Load, which is off, I believe, their first album. Then they went into Fortunate Son, Creedence Clearwater Revival cover.
That was really good too.
Yeah, it was really good. At first, I didn't recognize the song.
Yeah, me
until
neither.
They got into it a little, and then I heard the lyrics, and I was like, oh, because they really did made it their own with that version.
Well, I know that they did it with Corabi, and I think that was one of their top played songs on Spotify, I believe. So that one I had heard a bunch of times, and I thought, wow, okay, they did a great version of it with him, and because I mean it's a pretty straight ahead rock song.
Yep.
And their version last night was just as good.
Yeah, it was awesome. They did Midnight Moses by the sensational Alex Harvey Band after that, which is I'm not familiar with. But it's great. Then they launched into, a second that song ended, right into a drum solo, like out of nowhere, for the point they did like the concert ending, bah, 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 and then all of a sudden Tommy Clufutos.
Oh boy.
Oh
boy, we're really messing this. I'm not even gonna try.
I've seen his name like printed a million times, but I'd never really like Clufutos. Anyway,
if you know who he is, look him up. Look him up.
Here is what I like to do. How to pronounce Tommy. They usually have videos, which is funny. Not Yami.
Yanni.
How to pronounce that? Let's see if this comes up. Sometimes they'll have like a video or a little audio. Let's listen.
Tommy Cluftos.
No, I don't think that's right.
No, they just smushed a bunch of.
I don't think that woman, that electronic woman knew the thing. So anyway, sorry, Tommy. But man, he was awesome. So he just like started going, bah, 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 just like a crazy. I thought it was the concert ending continuing, but then all of a sudden everyone left stage. I was like, oh my god, it's a drum solo.
But I mean, well, not only the drum solo, but the songs he was putting, the energy that he was putting into those songs. I'm just like, I'm thinking like, man, you got to be in great shape to like be that physical and good every night, because he was doing the motions where it's like, if you see somebody playing the drums, they're usually like hitting the drums from like down here, but it's like every motion was exaggerated. He would like throw his fist up in the air and then hit a drum, hit a cymbal, like with every motion. And it's just like, okay, he's really like super exaggerating his motions.
Yeah,
but
he would like, with almost every snare hit, he'd bring his left hand way up high, bah, like, and he was like kind of getting ready for it.
And I mean, that's a showman, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not like being super exaggerated. I mean, like, he's putting on a great show, but I mean, it was powerful drumming. And I mean, I usually pay attention to the guitar player, the singer, whatever. I mean, because that's, my background, but man, he's a good drummer. He's not that much old. We're only a couple of years older than him. So he's not
Mhm.
a super young guy either. I mean, he's like in his early 40s, and he's like bringing that kind of,
He is compared to the members of the group.
yeah, but I mean, he's bringing the intensity of like, like maybe like a 20, 30-year-old
Mhm.
drummer,
Yeah, because I was thinking the drummer before them with the Black Moods was super awesome, had a great energy, but he was considerably younger than us. At least he looked like he was.
Yeah.
And Tommy was he was playing so well. I even took a video of him doing that, like, because like my friend our friend Scott that we grew up with is a good friend of mine, is a professional drummer. He was on our Coverdale page episode if you want to check it out. And he's like, he always likes to do like fun little, like, he'll do like the stick twirl between the hits and
Yeah.
everything, because he's a showman too. So I sent the video to him. I was like, look, he's like getting the power from heaven from every snare hit he does.
Did he get back to you about that?
Yeah,
or-
he did. He forgot what he said. But yeah, he was more confused of like, where are you? Like, what show is this? Who is that? What did he say? He said, who is this? And I told him. He said, oh, nice, he's great. And then we just talked about the band a little bit. So I
Oh,
told
cool.
them they can check out the review tomorrow. So yeah, and great drum solo. Like I said, I've never seen a drum solo start so like unexpectedly before.
Yeah.
And then he did some like normal like drum solo stuff, but I can't remember the last time I saw like a proper drum solo, like 70s style drum solo like that thrown into the show, because they didn't do a bass solo, they didn't do any like
Yeah.
isolated only guitar solo stuff. They've
Yeah,
kept
that
plenty
was
of guitar
really-
solos, but not like a standalone or anything.
But the other thing too was like, not only was he really good and like powerful, but it wasn't like it wasn't a super extended drum solo. Like, even though they didn't have like any other solos, like I mean, each one of them kind of had like a little bit of a showpiece. Like Glenn did take a little bit of a bass solo and like in the middle
Yep.
of one of the songs, but it was like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and even this drum solo was a standalone solo, but it wasn't like super long, it wasn't like this dragged out like 70s, so like, all right, hurry up, it was just long enough
it was
where
perfect.
where it's like you were just like, okay, when it ended, you're like, good. If this went on any longer, then I would be running to the bathroom. So and even like actually I think I don't think that either one of the guitar players did any kind of like standalone solos, except for
No.
when Aldridge was kind of noodling around
Yeah,
during
just
the
filling time. Yeah.
during the beginning of the show. But I mean, I think that that's good, because it's there wasn't a lot of in between song banter either, because
No.
I think they just knew they had to be like honest. They were like on a tight schedule here. They're like, hey, we need to squeeze in like a ton of songs here, so we're not gonna dick around.
And then he did it great. And so then after the drum solo, Glenn says, Tommy starts noodling around on the guitar, and Glenn says, we're going to do a song that I used to do with Deep Purple. And the way that Tommy was hitting those chords, what he was noodling around on, I could have sworn he was playing the chords for this time around. And that's when I leaned over to you and I said, I'm going to lose my mind.
And that's what I was like, what does Nate think that they're gonna play? I thought that you thought that he was gonna play Catch the Rainbow.
Oh no, yeah, I mean that would have been great too. But I was like, oh my god, if he plays this time around, I'm gonna freaking lose it. Like, to see him do that live. And then he started into Mistreated, and then I was almost a little disappointed, because I knew they would do Mistreated, because Glenn always does Mistreated.
Yeah.
So I was a little disappointed, but not really like disappointed, because I never in a million years even occurred to me that they would do that. But he was playing like, I don't know, maybe I'll put the audio in here so you can check it out for yourself and hear what he was playing and see if I'm crazy or what. But my brain was going there when he started saying this is a Deep Purple song. But anyway, they did a nice long version of Mistreated, and
Which was awesome.
Mistreated, I mean, Glenn's vocals, oh my god, like I just cannot. I know we talk about it all the time on the show. I just can't get over how well he sings after all these years. I mean, he sounds better than ever, and it's incredible.
Yeah, there's no exaggeration.
So few singers can sound that good 50 years on.
I mean, the dude just turned 70 and he was hitting those notes that any other, so like I cannot think of any other singer off the top of my head that could sing that high and that clean
Mm.
and with that kind of sustain either. Because I mean, he had held like at the, I think at the, was it, yeah, it was the end of that where he held like,
Mistreated.
I think it was the end of Mistreated where he held a note for like,
Mm.
and I mean, it wasn't, he wasn't doing his like down here. He was like up here, and
Mhm.
he was just like, I mean, God only knows how he can do it, but I mean, he's like, he's still amazing. He hasn't lost anything,
And
and
there
I
was
mean,
literally never a single second that I noticed during the show where it was like, oh, their voice starting to crack a little, or maybe he didn't quite hit that high note. It's just every note that came out of his mouth was perfect. And it's like, and some people like don't care for Glenn Hughes' style or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. It's just that is the note he is trying to hit. That is what he's trying to do. Whether you agree with that style or not, that's up to you. But he was not hitting anything that was not exactly what he wanted to do, which is
right.
just mind-boggling to
Yeah,
me.
technique is still, he still has technique.
So after Mistreated, they did My Fate, which is also from the Holy Ground album. They did Leave Me Alone from Burn It Down. And then they finished with two Holy Ground songs, Like No Other, Baseline, and Holy Ground, Shake the Memory. So that was the set list, and it's on setlist.fm. It was this morning when I checked it out. Really incredible. And then they all left the stage, and they waited. The crowd was not super, like, I don't think the crowd, we talk about like Ritchie not feeling like the crowd deserved an encore. If there was ever a crowd that didn't deserve an encore, it was our crowd. Like I never stopped clapping, and I was woo, I was saying it. I was trying to, there's some people trying to do the clap, but it just was kind of like, yeah, it was an appreciative
Yeah, it
clap.
was lukewarm.
But it
Yeah.
was like one of those things like, man, well, like show them some energy here, like give them something, a reason to come back out. Like they came back, I feel like they came back out despite the crowd, not because of like oh, we better go out or there's going to be a riot.
He's like, well, they paid us for the whole 90 minutes, so I guess we better get back out there.
Yeah, so I was just I was a little disappointed about that. I was like, come on everybody, let's go. And the one thing I mentioned, I noted that is Doug Aldrich kept calling it Juliet instead of Joliet, but Glenn was calling it Joliet. So then they come back out and they do Long Way to Go, one of their bigger songs from Make Some Noise, and then they ended it with Burn, which was really cool. Interesting hearing a two guitar version, no organ,
Right.
but they made it work really well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there was even one point where like Glenn was singing the organ part. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he went doo, doo, doo,
Yeah.
doo, 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 doo,
While he was
doo.
playing the bass, he kind of like hummed that along, and I was
Yeah.
like, and at first I didn't notice it was him. I was like, wait, where's that coming from? Oh, it's Glenn.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it was good because on the Deep Purple tour that he did, he had like a keyboard organ player, so he was able to do more faithful renditions to it. But I mean, with him knowing the song so well, I mean, I don't doubt that they were easily able to work up a version without organ, which I mean, was fine. I mean, you miss it, but I mean, it's just like, unless you're missing like a notable organ player, like, oh, like, Derek Sherinian could have been in there playing it, but he wasn't, it's not really like a loss or something.
and speaking of notable organ players, there was a guy sitting right next to me who you noted looked exactly like John Lord from behind. He had the glasses and the long ponytail. Didn't really catch much of a glimpse of him from the front, but
He looked like John Lord, like, like recent John Lord from like, maybe if, several years before he passed on
yeah,
but with no mustache, but he
yeah.
had like the completely gray pulled back ponytail. Like he almost like
He had the
had
same like
this,
kind of stature too. Like he just looked like
and I'm
like
like, Nate, this is some kind of sign. Like this John Lord is sitting next to you, the ghost of John Lord or something like
so if
that.
you follow us on social media, you probably saw a picture of John standing next to John Lord. So but yeah, that was
That was kind of funny.
yeah, that was fun. But yeah, that was the show. Oh, and then at the end of the show, they did the photo, which you
So yeah, well, that I thought that was a funny story, and it's one of those things that you had to watch to kind of catch it, and it was like they You know, a lot of bands now do the thing where the photographer jumps up behind the drum kit and they're facing toward the audience. So it's, you know, they to get the picture of the band with their back to the audience. So they have the band with the audience behind them, like all kind of fists in the air
Mhm.
after they're, you know, they take their bows. So the whole band is turned around and Glenn is leaning into the microphone, just being like, yeah, peace and love and this and that and everything. And I think it was Doug Aldrich or something
I think
like
it was Tommy that did it.
grabbed him by the shoulders and literally just like turned him around like he was like, hey, listen, cut it out with this like hippie crap, like, and take the picture, will you?
Yeah, like,
Like,
Glenn wouldn't stop. He was like, "Oh, music is the healer. Love you all." And
but I mean, he literally like he turned him around and was like, and you could tell by like the way that he reacted is that he was just kind of like, "Rup," like he was like totally involuntary. Like it was just like, all right, I guess I'm facing this way now. And then they took the picture and then they just like walked off and it was like,
and then
it was really funny.
at the end of the show in particular, right before that, and then throughout the show, Glenn kept saying, "We are a rock and roll band. We're a rock and roll. We play rock and roll. We're a rock and roll band." And we're all just like, "Yeah, we know. Yeah, we know."
I mean, and I feel like somebody was like backstage and they're like, so are you guys like a hip hop band or like,
Yeah, somebody that works there. I was like, "Oh, who's playing tonight?
It's like-
Is this some sort of hip hop act?
so he's like, all right, I need to like, I need to clear this
Bluegrass?
up.
What are you guys? I can't tell from looking at you what kind of music
We're
you guys
not
play."
a bluegrass band.
Looking at those four guys. So what style of music do you guys play?
I mean, for
can't-
crying out loud. I mean, you have like, all right, I mean, these guys like dress like rock stars. I mean, you had Glenn on with like, you know, the tight jeans, like the pink blouse or whatever it was.
He's got that retro look going on the last couple of
like,
years.
yeah, the glasses, and then you have like Doug Aldrich, like, you
Doug
know,
Aldrich
the
oh
sex machine.
God,
over there.
this guy.
It's like these
Shirt unbuttoned, the strat, the Les Paul down to his knee,
the bootcut
playing.
jeans flared out.
That
like
guy
it's
just
like
knows what to do.
long, like long blonde, perfect hair, you know, and he's just like, yeah, baby, you know, I'm still rocking it, you know.
He is the perfect rock star. He just looks exactly like liquid sex with a guitar. Like he just, I mean, I've always thought that, but seeing him actually like in person and live, I was like, this guy's just got everything you need. Not to mention the fact that he's an incredible guitar player. Really loved his solos and his playing through the whole show. But
he's a great player.
But just
yeah.
even if he played 50% that good, you just be like, well, I mean, look at him. He's got to be in this band. If you have somebody like that could be in your band, you just get them in your band.
Yeah, and then you got the drummer. I think he was like all in black, like long black hair. You know, looked like kind of a Frankie Banali type of look. Almost.
They talk about sticks. They look like tree trunks. They were so. I don't know if it was just the lighting or whatever, but they just looked so big, like thick sticks that he was just raising to the heavens and using the power of creation to hit the snare. It was awesome.
And then the other guy, what was his name? The other guitar player.
Oh, Dave Lowry.
Yeah, Dave Lowry. Just looked like this kind of just older, like hippie, like cool guitar player. He had like kind of like the neckerchief and like and again the tight jeans, the long hair. I think it looked like he had just a regular pair of glasses, like reading glasses or something.
Yeah, like black rimmed glasses.
Yeah, and he was just like, yeah, I'm just this cool older rocker. He's just kind of hung in the back, but I mean, they all had great energy. They had a great look, I mean, and one of my observations last night was just like rock is not like a young man's game. It's like you can put together, like, I mean, you had like from 40 to 70, like, these guys. Well, think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like Hughes is old enough to be like the drummer's father, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, but you're not talking about anybody really young. I mean, you talk about young bands, like young rock bands now is like, 20s, even 30s or whatever. And it's like, you can still be, an older band and still have, the chops in terms of like playing, singing, putting on a good show. And I mean, a lot of that too is like, I mean, these guys are like seasoned too. And I mean, I think that's, but once you're seasoned, a lot of people are just they just stand there and they're like, and they, like Hughes was like, like putting his head down, whipping his hair back all the time. And Doug Aldrich there, like, playing the guitar low and moving around the stage. And, you had the raising the sticks to the heaven, and, they were really bringing it, they were not phoning it in. So that's what made it enjoyable. Even if I didn't know most of the songs, That didn't really matter, that's, and I found that in the past couple of years of watching shows is like, it doesn't matter if it's, you don't know all the music or you're not too familiar with the band. Like when you're at a live show, like the performance and the showmanship is most of it, and
Mhm.
the having fun part of it. And if they're a good band, then they can pull it off.
Yeah, and they certainly did. Um, the only complaint I'd have about the show is the lights.
Oh,
And I think
yeah,
I
that was
think
pretty bad.
I think maybe, and it was funny because the Black Moods did not use that lighting system, so it was like fine. And the second Dead Daisies come out, I was like, oh, it was like headlights shining.
Yeah, we were blinded by
And I
headlights.
think maybe if you were downstairs, we should ask Ryan actually, down because they seem to be pointing up like
Yeah.
at us. So if you were downstairs, you probably just saw these lights, but they were like directly in our eyes a lot of the times. And like I was taking pictures, and you had to time the picture perfectly because it was
Yeah.
either like a picture of just a white light shining in this thing, or if you took it a split second later, the picture would be fine. But
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a, a deal breaker, but it was a lot of lights in the eyes right away. Just
I mean, even like every time Doug Aldrich took a solo, like the entire lighting rig behind him just like turned on, and we were like, all right, we can't see him now.
I tried to get a good picture of him like doing a solo because he had the solo stance and everything, of course, because he's Doug Aldrich. He's not going to just stand there and do it. So he had this great stance going on, and you could catch it every second or so. But yeah, all my pictures of him came out like garbage.
No, like yeah, every time he took a solo, it was just like the poltergeist. It was like, come toward the light, Doug. So forget it.
Totally. But yeah,
overall a great show, a fun show. Even though it wasn't packed, it was still, the audience that was there like loved it.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
obviously, and the band was great.
oh fantastic. Yeah, I
Recommend.
super happy when like I'm not like a big live music guy or live show guy, and I don't go to a ton of shows.
Yeah, you never have been.
No, I never really have been. I love music and I love studio music, but even in a band, I didn't even like playing a lot of shows.
Yeah.
But I did. But yeah, but so I don't often go to see a show like that unless it's something like I really want to see. And since I moved here, I've only seen I think Deep Purple and Dead Daisies. And before that, I had two other shows that I tried to see that got canceled for like emergency reasons.
Mhm.
I was going to go see Stevie Wonder do Songs in the Key of Life in its entirety at the United Center.
Wow.
It was, yeah, and then Jen got super bad like food poisoning or something,
Oh.
and she was like, maybe we can still go. I was like, we can't go. But since it was Stevie Wonder at the United Center, I was able to put them on StubHub, and we maybe lost like $15.
Oh,
And they were expensive tickets too, so it was. I mean, sold them instantly in like a second. And then another time was that band Wolfpack I've told you about. They were going to be playing in town, and we were going to go see them, and there was this emergency at work, and I just couldn't go, and I was really bummed. That was like a $25 ticket to see that band. So again, I even sold those and didn't lose any money. But so like if it's a band I'm really into, like I'll do it. But yeah, generally I'm not. There's other people that are the opposite way where I'll go see I just love live music, so I'll go see whatever. And for me, it's got to be, I have to be really in love with this band or the music. Don't really know the Dead Daisies that well. But obviously I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to see Glenn. So like I foolishly did the last time he came around.
Yeah, but now you did, so you can cross it off the bucket list.
Yeah, I'm still kicking myself. I didn't see the Deep Purple tour he did, but
yeah, that one was like, honestly, I really feel like it sounds like I'm trying to rub it in, but I mean, if you look at the set list from that, I mean, I remember texting you even before we started the show, and I'm just like, this would be like your dream show. I mean, they're playing like Mark III and Mark IV only, and it's Glenn Hughes himself up there doing it, and it's like, how in what universe could this ever happen?
Well, I feel like we've come full circle, because we were going to go, we were kind of batting around the idea for a few months. You had brought it up, I think, like, hey, Glenn Hughes is going to be playing in New York. Why don't we meet up and go see him do this Deep Purple show? And it was like too close to my daughter's birthday or whatever, and I couldn't make it work.
Right.
But then we kept talking, and then we were talking a little bit more about Deep Purple, and then we eventually, all of a sudden, boom, started doing this podcast. And then what, 2.5 years later, you end up flying out here to go see Glenn Hughes in a different format with me in person. So it really kind of is almost like this bit of closure where we weren't able to make that other thing happen, unfortunately,
Yeah.
which would have been really cool. And then I remember even seeing then like he was going to be by here later on, and that's why I'm kicking myself for. It would have been awesome seeing him with you in New York, but I could have at least went to that other show, but I'm so stupid and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because you always like you always think, oh, there's going to be another opportunity, and you never know what's going to happen, especially with COVID. There's been very few opportunities to see a lot of people, a lot of things canceled. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we kind of, this was the genesis of almost what kind of was the spark that made this show happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And now we actually got to do it and kind of at least somewhat close that chapter and move on to the future of the Deep Purple podcast.
Absolutely.
It was pretty cool stuff. So
yeah, where are we going to go from here, folks? I mean,
yeah, who knows?
Who knows? I mean, like Nate and I in the same room for the first time in years, and hey, not the last, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully not.
I mean,
and,
if I get an invite back, this has been very, very wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great having John around and to go around with the kids. You got to have a big bowl of cookie dough earlier today.
Yeah, it was like I'm third wheeling it with the family. You know, they're just like, Dad, can we have cookie dough? I'm like, yeah, Dad, can we? And one of your kids is like convinced that I'm the guy to go to for like basketball now.
John, the basketball expert.
Like I am not like he's just decided he's just like, John, look, this is the autographed picture of like Michael Jordan in this antique store we stopped in. And I'm just like, all right, I guess I like basketball now. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, buddy.
He's like, oh, you want to play one-on-one? He's like, hey, how tall do you think LeBron James is? John's like, I don't know.
I don't know any of this stuff.
Reminds me of this guy I worked with years ago, like really nice guy, super into sports. I'm just not like super into sports. So I remember when I first started working with him, I was like, hey, you come from back east, you really you into sports at all? Like, I was like, no, I really don't follow anything. I don't have time with the kids. And like, especially like I used to watch hockey a lot.
Yeah.
That was like the only sport I ever really followed. But hockey games all were like at the time, like you need to be getting your kids to bed. So if I like started, like fed my kids dinner, got them to bed, by the time I maybe could catch the last 20 minutes of a hockey game. And I just like, I was like, I don't have time for this. I just stopped watching and stopped caring.
Yeah.
But even though I told them, I was like, yeah, I don't follow any sports or anything. Every single day for years after they come in, oh, did you see the Sox game? Oh, did you see this? Did you see that game? Oh, your Bruins are doing really good. I was like, I don't know. I don't I don't follow anything. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. We did a little tour of the downtown area in our town today and walked around, checked things out, got some cookie dough.
Yep. Snow cones.
Yeah, it was
I enjoyed it. It was like a culinary tour of but kid style.
Yeah, it was like a walking culinary tour almost of our downtown area.
Oh yeah, we started this wild Starbucks.
Yeah, my wife was like, we could take some, we took some pictures together. It was like I could just crop everyone else out of just like you and look like you and John had this wild like day on the town, just like getting snow cones, skipping downtown together, going to the carnival. I'll throw like a baseball and win you like a teddy bear or something.
Just
like
wholesome fun with the Deep Purple podcast.
It reminds me of that like montage they do in like the Naked Gun movie. Yeah. I forget what song they're playing, but
yeah, but they do the whole kind of like a date day or whatever.
Yeah, they're doing all this stuff.
Oh man.
But yeah,
it's totally fun. I mean, it's call me corny, but it's my idea of a good time. I mean, like I said, I've had enough time like third wheeling it with like my brother and his kids, and everything over the summer, that it's just like, it's just the age that we're at. I just have to, it was like, oh, I hope these guys like me. And then all of a sudden they're just like, hey John.
And they also, hey John, you want to play Fortnite? And then they put John on their Fortnite team. They're like, John, go over there. John, come meet us. And John's like, God. Where? I don't know. What am I doing? Where am I?
I'm sitting in the middle of the couch, and the two of them are just like squished up on either side of me. And they're just like, all right, you do this to this and this, and they're explaining it like lightning fast. Like, I don't know what controller does what. And then I start doing it, and they just like, one of them is just grabbing it out of my hand and doing it for me. And at the end, they're just like, oh yeah, that's great. We couldn't have done it without you, John. I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like, I said, but thanks anyway.
Oh,
and they're like, you want to play Fortnite with us today? I'm like, you mean You can play without me. I could just sit there as decoration. That's about it. But it was still a ton of fun though.
Well, tonight's your last night in town. We're going to do deep dish pizza, of course.
Hell yeah.
And then we'll sometime between now and maybe when the pizza arrives, try to splice together this episode so we can get it out in a few hours. And that's it. We'll be back in the morning for our first live stream, which some of you may already have participated in if you're listening to this, but has not happened yet. And then then we'll have a lot of episodes banked for the future, and we'll be going into the fall with a packed agenda of live stream episodes and some other real-time episodes that we do on our normal format remotely. So that's it.
Yeah, this has been great. It's been a lot of fun. The show was great fun.
Yes.
Whole trip. I love it.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, until next week, we'll see you later. Oh, you know what? Before oh my God, I forgot to thank the other patrons too.
You got to do them all together.
Yeah, I got to do them all together. And then so you know what I'll do is we'll thank our core level patrons. The $7.77 Keep It Warm Rat tier, we have Michael Vader. At the $7 No One Named tier, we have Richard Fusey. At the episode $6.66 tier, we have Steve Coldwell, Arthur Smith, and Anton Glaving. At the $6.65 Almost Evil tier, we have Kenny Wymore. At the $5.99 Nice Price tier, we have Fielding Fowler. And at the $5 Moneylender tier, we have Greg Sealby, John Convery, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Jesper Alman, Alexi, The Perfect Stranger Slepikoff, James North, Mark Hodgetts, Kev Roberts, Will Porter, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, and Tim Southern Cross Johnson. And what we'll do now is, if we deem that there's anything of value from that conversation we had in the car last night that we recorded, A, if there's any value, and B, if it's audibly sounds decent, we'll tack that in right here. And now you've either heard it or you haven't heard it. And we'll finish off by thanking our foundation level patrons coming in at the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier: Peter Gardeau, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Andrew Meyer, Duncan Leask, and Stuart McCord. And at the $1 made up name tier: Els Murders, Spacey Noodles, The Unrestricted Leaky Mausoleum, Stephen Somerville, the Concerto 1999 fanatic, Raf Calf, Spike the Rock Cat, JJ Stenard, Hank the Tank, and Flight of the Rat Bat Blue Light. Thank you so much to all of you for your support of the Deep Purple podcast. And we'll be back at you next week with actually a kind of another last minute episode. But you'll have to wait until then to see what it is.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also leave us a review in Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.